My name is Pamela Mordecai. I am a writer, and I am very happy to be here on Culture's Compass to be sharing with you my hopes for the arts in the future. My role as a writer evolved, clarified itself for me more than it changed, except in one respect. Never mind the first thing that I wrote was for children in England. It was a collection of poetry for children. When I started to write, I was writing for an audience of people almost in every respect like myself. Common history, common culture, common context, common language or languages. Once I came to Canada, that was necessarily different. I was a diasporic person. I was writing in the diaspora. My people were now also diasporic people, and the audience I was writing for was wider than the Caribbean and the Jamaican Caribbean people who were here. Necessarily, my purpose, my role had to change. Even though I might have been doing the same things, writing about my island, still writing in the language of my island. Let's say my purpose was now, to borrow from Louise Bennett Coverley, colonizing in reverse. Never mind that Canada was a colony, still colonizing in reverse. And my subjects changed. I was writing now about, not entirely, I would still continue to write about my island, will do so until I die, but I was writing about Caribbean people as they were here and interacting with persons who were immigrants, some of them themselves, who had come in previous generations. So subjects changed. Indigenous people were included, became included in the subjects about which I would write. Different role, I suppose, yes. Role can be construed in a variety of ways. I write across genre. I write for children and for adults. Does my role change every time I write something in a different genre, write it for children, as beside writing it for adults? Those are questions I don't know. Different people would answer them differently. My late husband would say, all writing is the same act. And therefore he would say, no, that's not different. But there are people who would say, there is such an obvious difference between writing children's poetry and writing political commentary that, of course, the roles change. I will leave it as a question. Sometimes roles are assigned to you. I have just published my selected poems called A Fair Screenplace. The publisher is advertising the book as the work of a rebel. These are selections of poetry from the very beginning up until my most recent book, published, the Book of Joseph, published within 2 weeks of A Fair Screenplace. Am I a rebel? Did I sort of say, here is a role that I wish to assume. I wish to be a rebel. I don't know that that was so at all. I knew I wanted to write about hard things. I knew I wanted to face those subjects head on. I was not going to avoid using expletives, quote unquote, bad language, cuss words, if I needed to use them. But I don't know that I saw myself as being a rebel. I wanted to do new and different things. I wrote in traditional forms using Jamaican Creole. The Book of Mary is in tercets of anapes, but it is in Jamaican Creole. It has Greek-style choruses. I don't know if that is rebellious, maybe new. I did write a collection called Subversive Sonnets, so maybe at that point I saw myself as doing something different. But I don't know that I ever thought, okay, my role is the role of a rebel. There are two roles that did clarify themselves for me over time, and that I regard myself as hopefully performing. I think that Jamaican Creole is an extraordinary medium. I don't think it, I know it, because it gives me stories, it gives me poems, it gives me characters. it gives those things to me in a way that English doesn't. English does a good job of those things too, but the Creole is an extraordinary literary medium. And related to that, it is extraordinary in its oral aspect. So I want to celebrate my language. I want to do it in what I write, and I will continue to do that until I die. And I also appreciate the oral aspect of anything that I write. Never mind whether it's English. Never mind whether it is an essay, nonfiction. I write always hearing what I write, and I write always for the ear of my reader. So those roles are roles that I am clear about now, very clear about now, and roles that I very happily embrace. I appreciate slam poets and dub poets and performance poets because they have brought poetry that celebrates those aspects to an audience that appreciates those aspects of poetry. And so poetry has become more widely available than it otherwise would have been. I'm quite certain of that. And I want to be part of that work. I hope I have been. I hope I will continue to be. It's a role. Those are two roles I happily embrace. What sort of challenges do I face as an artist, as a writer in my case? Well, the very obvious one, which is that I don't have forever. So I have to choose what size projects, how many projects I write across genre, which kinds of projects. Do I write for children? Do I write adults? Do I write poetry? Do I write prose? Do I write stories or a novel? Those are very serious questions. What about reading? Equally, what do I choose to read? I can't read everything that I would like to read. So which books? And, how long? That's a question. If I'm not likely to write the Jamaican War and Peace, I'm not likely to be able to read forever long novels and get through as many of them as I might like to. So there are those challenges. There's a challenge too of, for me, discipline. I'm not one of the people who's turned up every day to wait on the muse. Maybe if I want to get through lots of things between now and when I'm no longer able to write, no longer here to write, then I might perhaps choose to turn up every day and wait for the muse. There's a question of getting stuff out, because I'm not the only person who has completed manuscripts that have just been there, because the whole business of finding a publisher, finding an agent takes time, and finding the right publisher takes time. So there's that as well. Do I want to get them out? Absolutely I do. And maybe I should address myself quickly to that. There's a question of what's going to happen to all that I've written when I'm no longer here to manage it. Arrangements have to be made for who's going to manage my literary estate when I can't do it anymore. There's a challenge too for me and for other people like myself who write in a code other than English, or English and another, in my case, Jamaican Creole. That the challenge nowadays for people like us is not as large a one as it was once, but still one has to sort of count on luck or just hunting really hard to find a publisher, an agent who has what I call big ears in Jamaican, big ears. Ears for an English other than what's called standard English. There's a problem of making a living. And even if you've been able to count on sturdy royalties, which I have been, I have written textbooks, and they are, if you write a good textbook, that has good staying power. But you have to manage how you go to the bank and say to the bank manager, listen, I've always done very well with my royalties. I can count on the fact that I'm going to get that great big check from the Canada Council because I'm going to get the grant I've applied for. You can't do that. It's simply not true. COVID happens, your royalties plunge, and you apply for a grant that you absolutely think you're going to get, you don't get it. So, and these are not the days where you can count on somebody at the bank who has known you for years, who's going to use their influence on your behalf. That kind of banking really doesn't exist very much anymore. So there is that challenge as well. There's a challenge of finding a writing community. And I think that for me, somebody who's not a joiner, it's been a challenge over the years, but it's a challenge that I've learned how to meet. And there's a wonderful representative of the Ontario Writers. The Writers Union of Canada has reps, and she's a marvelous person. Her name is Kim Fana, and she has invented a wonderful way for us to meet. We meet to share one another's work, and I'm happy to be part of that community. There's no better way to learn about your fellow writers. And finally, and this is an issue that doesn't impact just me, so I'll mention it. There is, I think, a fairly broad consensus about the criteria for what makes a good poem. And it's a pretty large, pretty generous set of criteria, if you want. It can include many different kinds of poems. But I think the criteria for what makes a really excellent poem is a bit narrower. And so I'm looking forward to the time when I'm gazing down from heaven and a slam poet is on his way or on her way up to collect the Griffin Poetry Prize. I will quarrel first with the notion of future. I'm quarrelsome. The future is a construct. It does not exist. We exist in a continuing present. So what do I want the arts to do in the continuing present? Well, do what they have always done. They have done it, and sometimes they have done it well. They show us to each other. They show us to one another. But they need to do this in a much more inclusive way. We don't hear all the voices. We don't see all the colors. We don't see all the makings. We don't hear all the musics. We do not see all the dances. And we are suspicious. We make distinctions. Fabulous fiction is not really literature. Well, Toni Morrison, I think a good case can be made for her as a writer of fables, a fabulous writer. So are we going to lose the Nobel laureate? I hope not. Mudcloth, African mudcloth is not really, it's a craft, it's not an art. Well, of course it's an art. I possess a piece of it. I think I have it on in one of these videos. It's amazing stuff. There's no question that it is art, and so on. I think the point is, the more inclusive, the better. Everything is not everything, but everything is almost everything. And it's not a bad way of understanding the world. When we understand that everything is everything, then maybe we will stop making war on one another. Maybe there will be no knees on necks, no zillions of bullets fired at, in order for us to all breathe, be free to breathe in our bodies, we need to understand each other a great deal better and hear each other much more comprehensively. And the arts can do that. The arts can see what's coming up. They can see this even in science. It's been done. Look on the internet. You will see. I'm not telling you no lie. It is so. The arts can do this. And we should look to them to do this. The arts can help us to understand that we perform art courtesy of earth. We have not understood that. By far, we haven't understood it well enough. And the arts, they need to do that. I hope for them to do that in the future. And the arts need to melt into each other in ways that have started, but they can do it a great deal more. Music can hold hands with poetry, can hold hands with dance. The modern technologies can be a part of this. The possibilities are endless. And the arts need to belong to all of us more than anything else. Newfoundland is exemplary where that is concerned. Art is not something over there with some people performing music and most of us listening to them. Some people performing, I don't know, theater and the rest of us watching them. Everybody, there is a community of performance in Newfoundland. I want for that for all of us. The arts have saved me. Writing has saved me. Poetry has saved me because I was made very early on to understand that it belonged to me as something that I could do. And Benedetto Croce says, if you vibrate, you are an artist. I am with him on that.